Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and today I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Wildy, Simmonds and Hill Publishing. They produce an awful lot of really excellent stuff for practitioners and for unrepresented parties, and this one I think is very important. It's called Small Claims Procedure in the County Court. It's this book here. It's a practical guide. It includes a full guide to the Road Traffic Act Small Claims Protocol. It's in a 7th edition and it's been written by Patricia Pearl and Tim Parker. As I say, Wildy's are to be congratulated for producing this book because I think it's very important in these days of increasing inflation and difficulties at the moment economically. I believe this book will be of great help to people on either as claimants or defendants in these types of action. Now, I've given the title of this book a must for any person who has to face a small claims case in the county court as an unrepresented party. And personally, I think that's actually what this book does extremely well. Let's have a look at it. It's only a small paperback, 7th edition. There's the spine, there's the back. Probably can't read very much in it. It runs to about 300 odd pages. The index at the back is by page numbering. There's quite a lot in the index actually, which is helpful. Then you've got, in addition to that, you've got forms at the back and an emphasis on mediation settlements as well, which I think is an agreement form. That's very helpful for these smaller claims. Then the front of the book, you've got that front page. Then you've got the detail here. You can see that Patricia Pearl is a retired circuit judge and Tim Parker is a district judge. And I think I've been in front of Judge Parker a few times. He's a member of the Civil Procedure Law Committee. This is the table of contents, and you can see it's actually quite useful. It runs through to quite a large number. It's actually quite well structured, looking very specifically at the rules and the procedure itself. It goes into mediation, of course, which is important in part 2. Then you've got the hearing itself. Remember, it's informal. That's the theory anyway. It's informal. Then you've got costs at the back and the hearing again, chapter 10. Then you've got appeals, which are relatively limited. Then you've got enforcement of judgments, which is important. And then you've got the road traffic accidents, personal injury, small claims at the back. And then a list of 10 appendices. Do read the preface, which is written by the two authors, dated the law is actually up to date, it says, as at the 31st of May 2021, and I'm recording this nearly a year later, thanks to the pandemic in part and a lot of other things. It's a very useful point. It says, welcome to the 7th edition of the book. It's completely updated. It's a professional text. And it says the book contains all the material needed to take a case to a final hearing and beyond. And that, in fact, is what the purpose of the book is. It says earlier edition described the small claims track as having a no costs rule, but that's no longer accurate. In fact, we've got what's called limited costs. And there are, of course, various rules to go with that. And remember, the financial ceiling for small claims is 10,000, with PI cases, personal injury cases, limited to 1,000. Again, there's been a lot of discussion about whether that should rise, and it may well do in future. Then you've got quite a useful little quote there with a flow chart, some various flow charts, which are probably a bit difficult to go into now, but you can see that's quite helpful because it shows how the actual process works. Then you've got a glossary, which I think will also be very helpful for the practitioner who is not represented, not the practitioner, rather the party who is not represented. It says it's a glossary, it's abbreviations, it's a whole range of things, but it gives you basically what the abbreviations like PD, for instance, many people won't know what that is. It's practice direction. So it gives you an idea, and in case you just think, oh, I wonder what that means, you can refer to this quite quickly. You've got various other things which state very simple meanings for what the words mean. Then you've got a table there, which is the overview of how the procedure works, page 2, and then you've got some cases, not many, and then you've got in addition to the cases, you've got the statutes, then you've got the statutory instruments, then of course after that you've got some conventions, very little on that really. Then you have other material which is linked into this. It's the practice directions mainly about how the process is actually dealt with by the courts. And then after that you get into part 1 claims. Then it runs through and it says how to use this book. Again, thank you Wildy for doing that, because I think because people will be worried about what they're doing, this book actually explains things. It's not a big book, but it will actually explain things very easily. And I think there are some blocked out areas which try to give some information about how something actually is dealt with. For instance, the overriding objective is set out clearly, defining exactly what it means. You've got how to defend, all various other very important factors, which is very simple stuff. Now, this is only a short review, and what I'm basically saying with the review is the following: that the claims that are assigned to the small claims track of the county court are up to the value of £10,000 at the moment. Now, obviously that could well change in the future, but it's been there for a while now, and it seems to have worked quite well, because in practical terms, the strict rules of evidence don't apply. So this practical guide, which is of course dealing specifically with small claims in the county court and the procedure, written by 2 judges, it gives clear guidance on all the relevant procedures and rules, some of which are unique of course to the track. Now, the track being what's allocated by the court. It says, right, it's up to that sum of money, so therefore we allocate this case to what is called the small claims track, not to the fast track or the multi-track, but to the small claims track. And that, I hope, will at least give people an indication of that. Tells the court what sort of type of case and what sort of process it will actually use to adjudicate the dispute. The title also gives you the full guide to the Road Traffic Small Claims Protocol, which I think will be of great help to practitioners and those litigants in person, because they need to be as up to date as possible. Now, the 2 editors, Patricia Pearl and Tim Parker, have included rules which limit cost recovery, procedures on appeal, and the small claims mediation service provided through the court. I have to say I'm not very impressed, and never have been, with the attempts by various people in authority, from the judiciary through to politicians, about how we should mediate everything. And yet the reality is that they really haven't done much to help. The people who have helped are people like the Society of Mediators and the Civil Mediation Council, of which I'm a member of, where we do actually offer schemes for free mediation in certain circumstances. And I have to say they do work. We did run a scheme at the High Court, and it worked very well indeed, and I'm hoping that will come back now that we're out of pandemic. What this book does, though, I think, is it meets all the needs of the professional user, including case citations where relevant, and that's not that much of an opportunity normally, plus the statutory references. But it's actually been written and presented in a no-nonsense, non-lawyer style, so that people will understand what is being said. And it's really like hearing what the judge says in court if you are a non-legal person, because, as I said, it can be very daunting doing these cases. People get worried. So what we want to do is try to put people at their ease so we can get to the root of the problem and try to sort it out. What it does do, and Wildy is to be congratulated for this, is it gives a wealth of practical advice, plus simple summaries, flow charts, checklists and tables, which will enable the unrepresented party to understand how the court process operates. Because whilst I can explain it as a member of the bar, and solicitors can, at the end of the day, we know what it's like because we deal with it every day, but most of the people coming through the system don't, and therefore it is very strange to many people. What I have found helpful, and it's the same with a lot of books today, is we've got the glossary, which explains over 100 legal words, terms, phrases and so forth, which I think will make life a lot simpler for everyone concerned. Now, this book was first published some 20 years ago, and it proved to be a very successful title at the time. And I remember seeing the earlier editions and being very grateful that this type of publication was available, because it's now obviously generated to a 7th edition, and we welcome it. It's been fully updated for 2022, and as I say, it's got this road traffic small claims protocol in it. It obviously may be a bit disconcerting to some people because of the rule changes, and I have to say, having just literally been in court very recently on a more regular basis after the pandemic's eased, to find a lot of complexity now with some of the cases we're getting. Frankly, I'm needless. It's needless, some of this, because it should be relatively simple, and that's one of the reasons why almost every time now the judges do try to get the parties to sit down and mediate, and that actually is a much better way of doing it, because otherwise you're going to impose something by making a finding which is not going to be to the losing party's favour at all, and they won't like it. Now, please be aware, of course, that the changes affecting personal injury cases which are worth more than £5,000 have not been allocated to the small claims track, and we are still really waiting to see what is going to happen in the future. I would like to see the day when the small claims track is actually £20,000 and that the personal injury claims are certainly massively increased, because with the changes that have taken place in personal injury cases, especially where we're talking about fundamental dishonesty issues raised by the defence, I do believe that this is something that we ought to be looking at again, because it's the costs implication which is the biggest problem. So let me conclude by saying this, that without doubt this book will remain a popular title with many readers. It does give us invaluable assistance as busy practitioners as well, to try to explain to our clients what's happening, and of course to litigants in person who should be advised about the book and indicated to them that it's worth reading. You should be able to see this in your reference library if you don't want to buy it, but these books aren't expensive and they're well worth the investment. It will equip them as litigants with the latest knowledge they need, and it will hopefully enable them going into court to make the most of the actual procedures that are available to them. I say that on the basis that the difficulty in the small claims track is that we don't want to get bogged down, because costs are much are not an important issue the way they are in the other trackings, where you've got fixed costs for the fast track, and then of course you've got a different approach with the multi-track. The problem we've got with the small claim is that quite often, as a practitioner, I will say, well, that's a small claim, but it's incredibly complicated. There may be points of law, there may be all sorts of things that come into it, even though it's allocated to a small claim track. So therefore, one can see immediately it's not quite as simple as it might initially be perceived to be. The date of publication is actually stated for the 7th edition as the 15th of September 2021, and the book was up to date as at the 31st of May 2021, and I'm recording this in 2022, a little bit later in the year, but it's a very current book at the moment. And just having a quick look at it again, there it is, and you can see there's chapter 2 there, step-by-step guide to starting a small claims case. All I would say is that when you read this book, try to bear one thing in mind. The idea of going to court should be a very last resort. You should try every other method first, because it's so unpredictable, and I do try to give an indication of what I think will happen in a case, but you can never give cast iron views about what will happen. This book will help you though, so a big thank you to Patricia Pearl and Tim Parker, and of course to Wildy's, the Wildy's publishing division. I'm very grateful to you for these excellent books. So thank you to all concerned, and good luck if you have to do a case in a small claims track. Thank you. Bye-bye.